Assalamualaikum and good morning, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Nur Damia Farhana binti Azrin, and today my topic is about shattered innocence, the urgent call to end the malicious youth epidemic violence. Now, ladies and gentlemen, I'm gonna need every one of you to imagine a typical Malaysian classroom. Now, imagine a 16-year-old girl sitting at her desk. On October 14, 2025, in a tragedy that is reported by Bernama, one such student was stabbed more than 200 times, not by a stranger, but by a 14-year-old peer. We must face the horrifying truth today that an epidemic of violence is quietly consuming our Malaysian youth. The headlines confirm a tragic and alarming surge in cases that are ending in young fatalities. I stand here today to tell you that this is not just a passing social issue, but rather it is the visible sign of our nation failing its youth, and it demands our immediate, unwavering attention. This crisis is profoundly relevant to every one of you. Why? Whether you are a parent worried about the school safety, an employer concerned about the future workforce, or simply just a citizen who wants to feel safe in public, this violence affects your peace of mind and our collective future. So I have dedicated myself to understanding this crisis by studying national health data and reviewing local psychological research. Today, I will demonstrate how Malaysia's rising adolescent violence, driven by a toxic triad of media, peers, and low self-control, is a national crisis that requires immediate government intervention to protect our future generations. We will look at the scale of aggression, analyze the causes, and finally, I will present a national prevention strategy that can lead us back to safety. Let's begin by answering the question, how bad is it really? Our children are navigating a new frightening reality where aggression has replaced safety and become a new norm. This isn't just kids being kids. The National Health and Morbidity Survey 2022 reveals a staggering scale of 16% of Malaysian adolescents have been involved in physical fights and 14.8% have been physically attacked, whether it is a bully or mutual fights. This proves that violence is a national pattern and not a series of isolated incidents. The data becomes even more concerning when we look at specific regions. Research on school-going adolescents in Peninsular Malaysia found an alarming 22.4% prevalence of violence-related behaviors, with male students showing significantly higher risk. Furthermore, a study of 16-year-olds in public secondary schools found a median aggression score of 23. This tells us that aggression is active at a consistent, common level among our youth. If we leave this unchecked, these scars will inevitably turn into more serious lethal violence. However, we must recognize that this violence is not random. It is a symptom of deeper issues. To understand why is it happening, we need to look at the toxic triad of causes: media exposure, low self-control, and negative peer influence. First, we cannot ignore the digital influence. Exposure to violent video games is directly linked to increased aggressive thoughts and behaviors because these games normalize violence and reward the aggressive behaviors. Local research by Pan and colleagues in 2024 found a direct correlation between game addiction and aggression. This addiction also promotes narcissistic traits, which leads to outbursts of aggression whenever a young person's self-esteem is threatened. So for example, the video games are PUBG Mobile, Free Fire, and so on. The second pillar of this triad is the individual's inability to regulate their own behavior. Research shows that a lack of self-control is the primary driving force behind this aggressive behavior. When adolescents lack this control, they cannot delay gratification. They impulsively react with any emotion to any situation they perceive as a threat. So, to make a hypothesis, the lower the self-control, the higher the violence will be. Finally, we must look at the environment. Family conflict and negative peer influence are critical predictors of deviant behavior. When adolescents lack parental monitoring, they tend to drift into aggression. Combined with impulsivity, these children react instantly and aggressively during conflicts instead of calmly considering their actions and other safe options. So, we know the problem, we know the failure, but we are not helpless. We possess the power to demand a solution, and it requires us to act urgently and comprehensively. This approach is uniquely effective because it recognizes that simple awareness is not enough to change behavior. So the IMB model, which stands for Information, Motivation, and Behavioral Skills, works through three critical layers. The first is information. Students must go beyond knowing violence is bad. They must be taught to actually understand their personal triggers, the specific words or situation that cause their anger to spike or rises. The second one is motivation. This ensures the student feels an internal, personal drive to change. It isn't just about following school rules or being forced, but about wanting a different life for themselves. And lastly, behavioral skills. This is the most vital part. We must give students concrete, practical coping strategies, the how to handling intense emotions without using their face or any violence using their legs or anything. According to research by Dapari and colleagues during 2022, this model is proven to reduce the toxic triad of internal struggles, which is depression, anxiety, and stress. By addressing these underlying psychological issues, we naturally lower the risk of violent outbursts in them. However, the model alone isn't enough. We need the people to deliver it. This strategy requires a systematic overhaul of our school counseling services. We need to increase our resources and, more importantly, provide specialized and continuous training that is actually relevant to the modern student needs. A critical gap currently identified across East and Southeast Asia. Implementing this would create a safer school environment where children can finally focus on learning instead of being scared in schools. So we have looked into the eyes of the crisis, understanding its root through thorough research, and identified the solution. The evidence is clear, and we can no longer be ignorant and turn a blind eye on this topic. We have confirmed the severity of the adolescent violence crisis in our schools, traced the roots of this aggression to be the toxic triad of addiction, peer influence, and low self-control, and established that the IMB intervention module to the path towards safety. I urge you today, do not stay silent. Use your voice to petition the Ministry of Education to fund the widespread use of the IMB health module and upgrade our school counseling units. We must ensure all schools in Malaysia treat student mental health as a serious issue and not just focus on their academics, because mental health is important too. So let us not wait for another headline or news of another child's life lost to finally wake us up. The time for action is now. Let us ensure our children can trade their violence for knowledge and their rage for hope. Let us reclaim their shattered innocence and build a future that is safe and whole again. Thank you so much. That is all from me. I hope all of you would agree with me. Assalamualaikum.